If you've ever done a beautiful illustration, sketched out all of the bits and pieces, and then you've added paint to the page, when the paint has finally dried, you've picked up your eraser to rub out those pencil lines to be left with beautiful, crisp watercolor paint. But when the eraser hits the page, the pencil doesn't move. If that's ever happened to you, I'm going to show you some really simple tips to help you so that you don't have these issues with painting over pencil and not being able to get rid of the pencil when you're done. And don't worry, I've done it before many times. I'm talking from experience, so there is no judgment here. All right, a quick crash course in pencils. This is a 6B pencil. Not sure if the camera will focus on that, but it is 6B. And I actually did a little scribble with this pencil earlier and then changed my mind about it and can't get rid of it properly. So I thought that was a really good example of how dark a 6B is, but I will still show you in case you don't already know. So a 6B pencil has a really soft lead, and basically that means that pencil is really dark. Compare that to a HB pencil, which I'm showing you upside down. So in comparison to the 6B, it's really light. So the pencil on the page is really light. You can already see quite a big difference. A problem that I used to experience and still sometimes experience is that I will draw or sketch on my page ready for painting with a really dark pencil. For example, like a 6B, or even just pushing really hard onto the page with a HB. So I'll show you a quick sketch. Okay, so there we have a heart. I couldn't think of anything else. So anyway, I will show you what it looks like when I paint over the top of the pencil with my paint. And I'm gonna do pretty transparent paint, and I'm gonna kind of deliberately go outside of the lines as well, just so you can see as a really good example. Here is our messily painted love heart painted over the top of darker pencil. So I need to wait for that to dry before I can even try and erase the lines. While we're waiting for that to dry though, I'm going to give you another crash course, but this time in erasers. So this is your typical eraser made of, I'm presuming, rubber. And I'm sure you know the drill. You erase your pencil with it, and then there's little bits of the rubber all left on your page. And when you're painting, that's a pain in the butt because you don't want little bits of stuff in your paint. As you saw before, it's really annoying. So you know the drill. I'm sure many of you would have used these at school and potentially continue to use them today. But my preferred tool, oh my goodness, I really can't talk. My preferred eraser is this. Can't remember if it has a technical name at all, but let's call it a putty eraser. That may or may not be the correct name. I'm not sure. But here we have putty eraser. It looks like blue tack or generic tacky gum to tack things to the wall, trying not to reference brand names. Anyway, it looks like that, but it is an eraser. It kind of looks gross. It's very fun to play with. And when you erase with it, no little bits come off. So let me show you. So hopefully you can see there are no little bits of rubber on my page, so there's no risk of them falling into the paint or anything like that. I love my putty eraser. I actually got given one in primary school. Side note, this is a story for you while we wait for the paint to dry. I actually won the grade 6 art award in primary school, but then did really poorly in art for the rest of my not career, and did quite poorly in art in year 11 and actually gave it up at school. So I haven't studied art since school. But in grade 6, I won an art award and got one of these. With the power of video editing and a hairdryer, our heart is now dry, and I'll demonstrate what happens when I try and erase the pencil. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to use the putty eraser, so it's arguably the better of the two and just a bit less messy. So I'm going to try and erase the pencil from under the paint, and I'll show you what happens. So for the most part, I was able to get rid of, except that it was really dark, so I couldn't actually get rid of all of it, but I was able to get rid of most of the pencil from around the edge that the paint had not gone over the top, but the other side where I had painted over the pencil, I could not get rid of it. So I'm going to show you how to avoid that now. So I have a couple of tips to help with this. The first tip is use a lighter pencil. So a HB pencil would be great because it's quite light, and I'm going to draw for you another heart, but with my HB. Alright, so my first tip is to use the HB pencil or similar because it's really light pencil. And my second tip is once you've actually got your guide on the page or your sketch of whatever it is, whether it be a heart or something else, I actually recommend that you, even though it's already lighter than the other sketch before, I recommend that you rub it back a bit more so that you can only just see it on the page. Alright, hopefully you can actually see it on the page, but you'll already be able to see that this love heart is very, very faint. You can barely see it compared to the one drawn in 6B, or whatever it was, I've already forgotten. It's much, much lighter, but I can still see it on the page, and hopefully you can too. So it works as a guide, and I know where to paint, but if I paint over the pencil, it doesn't matter too much because you won't be able to see the pencil shining through the paint because it's so light. So I'll show you it in practice. I have gone over the pencil lines, but you can barely tell because the pencil is so light. So there's no need to even worry about erasing it at all because it's so light, and no one other than me will be able to see any of the pencil shining through if it is. So that is my second tip to you, is even after you've used a lighter pencil, go back and erase it back as much as you can so that you can only barely see it on the page. All right, now you've had your crash course in watercolor paint, pencils, and erasers. If you want to learn more about watercolor supplies, plus get free tutorials so you can get started with watercolor painting, I've got a free guide. It's in the video description. You can download it and get started right away.